Hello there and welcome to a real windy, wintry evening. Is féidir leat an gae clushing amach. And the cats are inside and they're sounding as well. I think they're a bit hungry. Back in May of 2018, I was asked to create a talk, a performance, storytelling for the older generation, for the Bealtaine Festival. And it had been in my mind for a while, and I really started putting something together because the idea of recycling, reusing, mending, fixing isn't a whole new concept, a new construct. This is very old. My grandparents recycled everything. They reused. They had very, very little waste. It's just to learn from the past and see what people did and see how we can move forward with the lessons we learned from the past and the lessons about repairing. So the talk went very well, and I moved on to another project then, Story Bank. But I want to get back to those talks and some of the stories. So one of the things I found in a great book about the Tailor and Ansty, and I'll probably make another video about the Tailor and Ansty and the book itself, because it is fantastic. It's a tailor who was a guy called Eric Cross, stayed with his tailor in Inchigeela, where my maternal grandfather comes from, and he stayed with a tailor who lived with this woman called Anastasia, and he stayed and wrote down all the stories because the tailor was a real storyteller, raconteur type person, and people would come and spend the night there listening to all the crack and the stories and the racket that would be going on. And for some reason the clergy were very upset with this book, and the tailor, something probably very innocent, probably more innocent than the clergy were doing themselves, I'm sure. There's a segment inside there from the tailor, and it reminds me of growing up, it reminds me of home, it reminds me of even certain stories I could tell about my own professional practice. And there's other people who could tell stories as well, I'm sure. But this story is all about a coat. The tailor had struck up a bargain. He was going to turn the coat for Jerry O'Sullivan. Now, turning the coat means taking the coat apart, and the materials on the inside would now go on the outside. So it would be like a new coat. It would be a second life for the coat, and it would keep going on. And that was okay, and the coat arrived, the coat was left, the tailor was going to go at it, but Ansty started whitewashing the house. And as the tailor put it, there was more whitewash on the floor than on any of the walls, so he had to protect his sewing machine. So he said since he'd be turning the coat, he'd throw the coat over the sewing machine for protection. And that was fine out, and it went on, and the place was beautiful and whitewashed and everything like that. And he said he met Jerry, and Jerry was asking about the coat, and he said, I'm starting now tomorrow. And that evening he went home and he asked Ansty, where is the coat? And Ansty told him she had that old coat and she put it under a hatching hen. And he said, oh, there's no way I can touch that now for 3 weeks, because if the hen goes off the eggs, that'll be end of the chicks for the season, so we leave well enough alone. The tailor went about his business and the coat stayed under his hen. Now, he had a little box that he used to sit on, a butter box, but he had a cushion put on it as well called cornucopia. And he would sit on this when he was telling his stories and entertaining his neighbours, guests and friends. But of course the cushion was getting wearing a bit thin, and there was a few springs coming up here and there, and he asked Ansty, is there any chance she'd have something to put under him until he fixed the box himself? And of course, what did she bring in? Only Jerry O'Sullivan's coat. So it's been another long time under the tailor, protecting him from the springs. And that was all right. It went on a bit further, and he got a new box and he got a new cornucopia, and he met Jerry O'Sullivan again. And Jerry asked, he said, look, will I get a new coat for the winter altogether, because it doesn't look like you'll get my coat done. Don't be silly, don't be crazy, the tailor said. I'll have your coat turned, don't you worry. And he came straight home and he asked Ansty, where was Jerry O'Sullivan's big black coat? Oh, she said, I have it out in a window. There's a window broken in the hen house, and the coat is in there blocking out the fox. And until you fix the window, the coat is staying there. So, of course, the tailor wasn't very quick in fixing in the DIY department, and it stayed there for another while. Eventually he brought in the oats, and he had the oats sitting up in the haggart, everything was going fine, but the thatch wore very thin very quick and the oats were getting all wet. So one day he tackled the window in the hen house and he put Jerry O'Sullivan's coat over the stack of oats in the haggart and left it there. That was all right. Coming up to January, that was about October that he put it over the oats. Coming up to January, he had a visit from a fella from Kerry called Jack of the Roads. Now, Jack was from Kerry, but he was on his way from Cork City, and whatever meandering he did, he ended up in Inchigeelagh. And that was fine out, but he was heading back to Kerry on a cold, dark, wet, wintry night, a bit like this evening. And what the tailor said was, geez, you can't go home like that without a proper coat. Take the black coat. He took it off the stack of oats, gave it to Jack of the Roads in January, and off Jack of the Roads went. Now again, it wouldn't be today or tomorrow. Jack would be coming back up to Inchigeelagh, but he heard of some fella going back close to Inchigeelagh, and he asked him would he drop the coat to the tailor. And of course your man dropped it to some fella that was near the cousin of somebody that lived near Inchigeelagh, and hopefully the coat would arrive. And eventually it did. And of course when it did, the tailor, who was now quite famous and probably more famous because his book was banned, was getting a bust of himself made. So he had to sit and pose and everything, and he wasn't in the right form at all for turning a coat. Well, the bust was made, everything was done, and he saw the coat and he said, now, I'm going to go at the coat and I'm going to turn it. And he started out, the coat opened out, and he noticed that there was a fraying somewhere now, say maybe the elbows or somewhere like that, and he needed more material. So he would actually have to take one of the pockets out and patch the elbows with the pocket. And he said that's going a bit too far without permission now. So he sent a garçon off to ask Jerry O'Sullivan would it be all right if he didn't have a left pocket in the big black coat. And the word the tailor got back from Jerry O'Sullivan, he said, now that you're eventually fixing my coat, you might as well make it into a shroud for me to be laid out in, because it's taken so long, the coffin is the next place I'll see. And the tailor said, God bless that Jerry O'Sullivan, you'd swear I'd nothing better to be doing only turning that coat for him. And not only is it interesting that the coat had 1,000 uses, but also the idea of inefficiency, I suppose. The delight in inefficiency and things going this way and that way and the other way, and maybe coming around and being right in the end rather than everything being efficient and done and no questions asked. For me, and growing up, things were a lot like that. Things would be put on the long finger, on Maor Ada, and I think I have one of the longest fingers in the world. I hope you enjoyed that story from the Tailor and Ansty. I'll be having more, and I might try and get that talk together again. Go raibh maith go bhur fad. Slán.